Yeah.
All right. Welcome everybody, all of you in internet land, as well as everybody here at the Acoustic Shop. This has been a whole bunch of fun. We got introduced to this fella a while back. Started hanging out with him online as well as in person, and we've got along okay.
So far.
So far,
you
we've
know,
got along okay.
We've had our tussles.
And anyway, kind of put this idea together a little bit ago. Decided we're going to do a workshop with Jim, as well as talk about filming videos, which you guys at home are going to get to see, and you guys who are here. We filmed so much content over the last 3 days, 2.5 days.
They're going to be sick of Jim Pankey.
Trust me, I'm also sick of Jim Pankey. So, no, I'm just kidding.
He's not kidding.
Anyway, we are so glad to have you guys with us. Again, this is going to be a live stream event. You guys get to ask questions in real time. Talk about three-finger style banjo. We're going to be talking about old-time style banjo or frailing or clawhammer, however you want to call it. It's going to be an open free-for-all. I want to thank Recording King for sponsoring this by the parent company, Music Link. Thank you guys so much. There's going to be some specials on those. In fact, for those at home, there are going to be even some specials on banjos and guitars tonight. We'll talk about those here in a little bit as well. And again, we'll thank them for doing this. But tonight, it's all about meeting your banjo. That's right, everybody. We brought deli meats. Everybody put meat on your banjo.
That's right.
These jokes were written ahead of time. They just go over well.
Content like that creates itself. It really does.
It's natural. Anyway, if you're online, put the comments or questions in the stream. We'll be more than happy to talk about them. And you folks that are here, whatever you guys want to do, lots of great folks here. And I'm going to get out the way because everybody make welcome Jim Pankey meeting his banjo.
I mean, shouldn't I? Well, I could lean over. Hey, y'all, Jim Pankey here. See, it really is me. It really is me. Wow, I'm excited that there's so many people showed up, and even online. I don't know how many we have online, but I see names up there I know, and see folks here. Y'all, thank you for allowing me to do this. Those of you that are using my videos or looking at my videos online, thank you for trusting a stranger on the internet to help you learn to play. But now I'm real. I'm a real person, and so basically, like when I do a workshop like this, which is just meet the banjo, a lot of that is we'll talk about different styles. I'll play a little bit. I want y'all to play a little bit. We might let you try some new things. I'm looking around and I'm seeing resonator banjos and I'm seeing finger picks. So I'm assuming that the bulk of you folks are three-finger players. Do I have any clawhammer players in the group? You play clawhammer and three-finger. You're a weirdo. Join the club. Join the club. Yeah, it's many years ago. Bluegrass players and clawhammer players, there was this divide. But over the past decade or so, I have seen a lot of old-time players learning bluegrass. I've seen even more bluegrass players learning to play old-time style banjo too. So I would kind of like to give you a chance to even try that, just to see what it's all about. It might be the very thing that would spark some new ideas for you, give you some new things to try. And that's something that, that's why we're here. At any point, you can ask me a question. I will, if I don't know the answer, I can make stuff up just right on the fly. I'm pretty good at that. That's how I survived my childhood. Just, oh, you need an answer for that? Okay, I can do it. So, but I guess folks online, y'all can answer this in the chat, and those of you here, I just kind of like to run around the room here a little bit and find out who's doing what you know, how long you've been playing. So we'll start with you. What's your name?
Elijah.
Where are you from, Elijah?
Chelsea, Oklahoma.
Chelsea, Oklahoma. That's a long walk, man. Did you start walking Chelsea, Oklahoma? Oh, you took it. A year. What about y'all back there? All right. Well, thank you. Well, we'll talk about that.
When I started watching it, I'm not much of a banjo player, but I just started playing then.
Mhm.
I play guitar mostly, but anyway, I enjoyed your videos so much and learned so much from you in that awful time.
Yeah, it was an interesting time for sure, and a lot of people. I will say during that period, I had built my channel, and during that time, I watched my regular. I know what my analytics are, and I know how many subscribers that I get each month, and it tripled during those several months.
So
And,
I really appreciated it.
well, great. And so you've been playing since a couple of 3-4 years now.
Well, I kind of set it down then.
Wow.
Back to the guitar.
You're back. You're back, and you're here. You're here.
That's right.
All right.
My name is Charles, I'm from Miller, and I've been trying to pick now for years.
Years. Okay. All right. Cool. Some of y'all may know this fella.
Alan,
All right. Hey, Alan.
Yeah, I attempt to, I'm blind.
I try. I don't know if I approached it with that in mind, but I did try to be clear about what I was doing, just in case the videos didn't look so great. So I'm glad it was helpful. How about you?
My name is Jim. I got this just a few months ago. Just trying to kind of trace the roots back to Africa. Where
Absolutely.
I came from, trying to figure it out.
So how's it going for you?
Started off really hot. I'm more of a guitar player.
Right.
But just started a new job, so kind of fell off.
I got you.
Trying to get back on track.
I got you. All right.
yeah, I'm from Rockbridge, Missouri. And I had this banjo since I was 8 years old. My dad and grandpa gave me it. It's been on the road off and on, and I'm a retired over-the-road driver, and I figured I'd get back in music since my dad
All right.
played music since I was a little kid.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. How about you?
My name is Lexi. I'm from here,
Okay.
and I've been playing for 2.5 years.
Awesome. You take lessons here?
Yes.
Okay. How about you?
I'm Mariah,
Uh-huh.
and I have been playing for about 3 years now, and Clawhammer about since July.
Okay.
So,
Very
and
cool.
I live in Missouri, and I'm actually skipping part of HOCO to come here. So.
Oh, well, thank you for coming, taking time out of your busy schedule to hang out with a bunch of old banjo players. How about this back row here?
I'm Jordan.
Hi.
I play three-finger style. I'd like to learn more Clawhammer.
Okay.
I've been playing for about 6 months.
All right, awesome.
I'm kind of obsessed with banjo
Mm.
right now. It's a problem.
Well, I wouldn't call that a problem.
I'm John. I just follow Lexi around. I play the guitar.
Right.
to her band.
Is he an okay guitar player for you?
Yeah.
All right. Good answer. And
I'm with
your
these
mom? All right.
I'm Matt. I'm from Springfield, and I play guitar, but I'm trying to get into banjo.
Well, this is a great place. It's a great place to meet a banjo. Anybody on the back row?
We're Elijah's Uber from Oklahoma.
All right.
And I would just say that I don't really play a lot of banjo. I do have a banjo, but it's been like a dream come true. A year ago we started your videos,
Okay.
and it's been a dream to just be able to play with these, learn a lot from primarily your videos.
Fantastic.
Thanks for that.
Good deal. All right, folks. All right. Well, what should I do? song? What do you know? You know Cripple Creek. Do you know Cripple Creek? You know Cripple Creek? Have you learned Cripple Creek yet? We can wing it. How about you? So let's just a few of us play Cripple Creek just to break the ice, and that way we've all played something. You can Clawhammer, you can three finger, whatever makes you happy. All right. How fast can we go? All right. Here, we won't do anything too crazy. We'll start with the high part. 1, 2, 3, 4. Big ending. Awesome. Good job, guys. Hey, it's the Acoustic Shoppe Banjo Band. Brothers did not expect that. That's awesome. All right. So three finger, those of you learning that. I'm not sure how you're going about it other than I'm going to assume that you're looking at my lessons. But for me, when I was learning to play, I didn't have my lessons. I had recordings, and I really didn't have tabs. I had a handful of Flatt and Scruggs records that my dad had, a couple of Stanley Brothers albums, and my mother had an ancient old banjo that hung in the closet that I snooped around and found. It was an old Stella, and I tuned it up or figured out how to tune it and just started messing with it. And along with that old banjo, Mom had the Pete Seeger book, the red Pete Seeger book, and that's how I learned how to tune it. And I think that's where I decided that I could learn three finger as well as old time banjo. And I play a Clawhammer style, I play up picking style, various things on old time as well. So that's where I started. And then that same year for Christmas, my dad found me just a very inexpensive banjo from it was a record shop. He found a banjo at a record shop, and at that record shop he found the Earl Scruggs album that went along with the Earl Scruggs book. I didn't have the book, I just had the instruction album, and you could hear Earl's, he taught you how to do the basic rhythm, put your thumb on the third string, and then you're going to pinch the first and the fifth strings, and he walked through, and those were the very first things that I learned, was to do the pinch pattern, alternating roll, and to be able to play Cripple Creek, because those were things that Earl demonstrated on that album. He demonstrated some other things that, just backup ideas and things that he was doing. And with that, just tiny bit of information. I didn't have a lot, didn't have a teacher, no one, I'm sure there were people in the community that could have helped me learn to play, but I was a stubborn child and I didn't want anybody to show me anything, and I wanted to figure it out on my own. And so I would sit with the Flat and Scruggs albums, the Stanley Brothers albums, and our old record player, we played a 33 1/3 vinyl album, but it also had a 16 speed on it, and you could slow them down. And I would sit and listen to records slowed down, octave low, just tried to figure out what was going on. And I struggled at that. You know, if you don't have somebody to show you, it does slow things down. But in the process of slowing things down like that, when you did discover something and you did learn something, it stuck with you. Now, I don't know, like in your lessons, do y'all use tabs in your lessons? You use tabs. I didn't learn to read tabs until I was probably 30 years old. I just played everything by ear. I figured it out by ear as best I could with a little bit of information that I had. I didn't know a lot. I mean, I knew how to do, all right, so in three-finger banjo, question, how many right-hand roll patterns would you estimate that there are? I'll let you answer that one.
Probably over 100.
You think? How about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with
You going with big numbers? How about you? Anybody want to take a stab at that? I tend to think maybe 5 or 6. I really don't think in terms of lots and lots of patterns. So let's think about this. I know an alternating roll, a square roll, 3, 2, 5, 1. I know a forward roll, and there's a variety of different forward rolls, but it's still forward is thumb, index, and middle of some sort. There's forward and reverse, and then home sweet home, you learn a backwards roll, and then maybe the Doug Dillard roll. Some people call it the Osborne roll. And that's really everything that I had. I didn't have much more than that. All right? And if you think about that, what about on your left hand? How many things can you do with your left hand? What are techniques that we use playing the banjo? What's a technique that we use with our left hand on the banjo?
This is one of the most commonly excited.
So a slide. So you learn a slide. And then what's another left-hand thing we could do? Somebody. A hammer-on. What's another thing we could do? Pull off. Got anything else? A bend. Right. And then we got chimes. So there's really, so on our left hand, we can hold chord shapes. We can do a slide, so chords. Slides, hammer-on, pull-off, bends, chimes. So there's 6 or 7 things on the left hand that we do, 5 or 6 things on the right hand that we do. When I first started doing workshops and clinics, and I taught a workshop for Steve Kaufman, this was years ago, 2008, and Steve, I'd like you to come and teach. And I said, Steve, I can show you everything I know about banjo in about 15 minutes. He says, a week-long class, you're going to have to stretch. It's like, well, but there's not lots of things. But for me, when I started thinking about how to figure out things on banjo, I knew I had a limited skill set. I knew how to do a handful of rolls. I knew how to do a handful of things on my left hand, and then I started listening to a recording. And I remember listening to Earl play Cripple Creek on the Foggy Mountain Banjo album. And there were things that I did not understand, even slowed down. I really didn't understand what was going on, but I knew I could hear a chord change, and I knew there was something going on. And so I would sit and just try to figure it out. It's like, okay, that sounds like it goes high there. What's he doing? I don't know. I would just try things. And so that's my first bit of information for you, is something that I want you to think about. You're not locked into anything on this instrument. The one thing I want you to, if you take nothing else away from this conversation, just try stuff. Don't be afraid to put your fingers somewhere and play a roll and see what happens. It might sound good. You might like it, or it might sound bad. You can try things. But I remember Cripple Creek. So Earl, you know, he's got his little high part. Now, I know as simple as holding that partial C chord and doing a forward roll, it took me a while to figure out what he was doing, but I didn't let that stop me from playing Cripple Creek. I thought, well, how can I do that and still make those sounds? So I figured out something like, I just did. Yeah, it was something up here at the 5th fret, because I could hear Cripple Creek, roll my britches to my knees. And so I figured, okay, that must be there somewhere. And I played it like that for a long time. So you can, so what that told me, just in my experiment of doing that, I knew that that was a C chord. And I had figured out where most of my chords were. I had a little chord book. Showed me my chords. Well, there, I might as well learn those. That when a song changed chords, I could play a C chord anywhere I wanted to, and it would still probably be all right. Would it sound great? Maybe, maybe not. But I knew that if I was playing with a group of people, I could play, if the song went to a C, I could hold a C chord, play a roll, and it might work. It may not be the best decision, but I don't know that until I've tried it. So don't be afraid to say, all right, if it goes to C, find a C, see what works. So, I mean, that's not great. It's not, but if you put your mind to it and allowed yourself to experiment, then that would give you, you're going to create your own arrangements to stuff. And so I told you all of that to tell you another story, because I have stories. I was probably 15 years old, and Dad was real good about carrying me around to see banjo players, different people. You know, it wasn't a lot at home. Dad didn't play. I mean, he played some two-finger, just noodle, but wasn't a banjo player. And so we went to see Raymond Fairchild. And at that point, I had pretty much worked and spent a lot of time learning tunes and stuff off the Foggy Mountain Banjo album. Y'all, is everybody familiar with Flatt and Scruggs' Foggy Mountain Banjo? If you do not have that, find it. You can get it on streaming. As a bluegrass banjo player, for me, that was the Bible. That had everything that I felt like as a bluegrass banjo player I needed to know. And no, I don't know all of it. I can still put it on and find things that I didn't hear. But I was really buried in that album a lot. I literally wore out 3 of those albums. I mean, they were just worn and hiss and pops and skips and stuff, just moving the needle over to where I needed that lick again. And so we went to this concert, and it was Raymond Fairchild. And Raymond is from Maggie Valley, was an amazing banjo player, and just an interesting guy. And we watched the show, and after the show, being, you know, banjo, he's out there just talking to everybody and hanging out. And he hands me his banjo. Here, check it out. And it was an old Gibson RB1. And so I walk off to the side, and I'm playing it, and my dad and here, they're talking. And I don't want to wear out my welcome on the banjo. I'm, you know, I've only been playing a year and a half, maybe 2 years at that point. And I walk up and hand him his banjo back, and he looks at me and he says, play real good, boy. Don't copy nobody. And it's like, oh, all right. Now that's a puzzle, but that was permission to me to actually try new things, to figure out my own way of playing a song. And that set me on a kind of a little different path to be able to create my own arrangements with just a little bit of information that I had. So don't be afraid to do that. Here's a simple analogy. Were I to pass out sheets of paper to everybody in boxes of crayons, and I pointed at this beautiful F4 Gibson mandolin with handle tuners on it, and I said to you, draw me that mandolin. And you could take your box of crayons, and each of you could draw that, and we'll put, you know, we're going to put them on the refrigerator. Anybody you showed that to, regardless almost of your skill level, it would be identifiable as a mandolin. Folks could look at it and say, hey, that's a mandolin. Might not be great, but it would be identifiable. And so what you can do as a beginning student or as an intermediate or advanced player or whatever, you can listen to a tune and say, okay, that tune kind of does this. It goes here, it plays these notes. These seem important, these don't. You know, I can do these things. And you can suddenly have you can create a tune that would be identifiable to somebody else. That doesn't have to be the way Earl did it. It could be just the way that you did it. It could be your arrangement. You're not locked in. To my adult learners, and this is more to adults, I think, than kids. Like when we start things late in life, new hobbies, new things that we start, we want to be able to do it the right way. And I get that. You know, you want to play the notes that Earl played. You want to play the notes that J.D. Crowe played, or play the notes that Alan played. And good luck with that, because you're not Earl. And I'm not saying that you're not a good banjo player, but because you are. I've heard some of you play. You're fine banjo players. But you don't have his hand. You don't have his brain. The processes are going to be different. And so when you do it, it's going to come out different. Does everybody know the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears? Anybody not heard of Goldilocks and the Three Bears? I think Ashley may vaguely heard it. Okay. I could go around and have each of you tell me the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And it would be a recognizable story, but no one would tell the story exactly the same way. You're going to use different words, you're going to use different, you might even change the storyline a little bit, but it's still going to be the same story, and we'd all get it. So the way that I might play Doug's tune is probably not the way that Doug Dillard would have played Doug's tune. I played Doug's tune Jim's way. And that's okay. But as adults, when we take on an instrument, we get really focused on getting all the notes exactly right, exactly like on the recording, when in reality, those recordings were a moment in time. And while you may be able to go back and recreate what happened there, there's a good chance that the artist that recorded those things might not be able to go back and play all of those same notes exactly the same way again. So don't be afraid to express yourself your way on the instrument. I've seen people post things online like, hey, it's your banjo, you can play it any way you want. Yeah, but we understand that there's a tradition to how all of this goes, but it's not always It doesn't have to be exactly the way Earl played it, because you're not Earl. You look nothing like him. But you can still play songs your way, and different players would approach tunes differently. So here's an interesting example. Any of y'all studied or listened to any of Ralph Stanley's banjo playing at all? Some of you have. Ralph has a very forward roll feeling drive. He uses index finger for a lot of the melody notes, which is different than Earl did. So Earl would play Cripple Creek. Ralph might not have played it like that. I've never heard Ralph play Cripple Creek, but if Ralph did, he could have played it something like. So it's still Cripple Creek, it's still identifiable as Cripple Creek, but it's not the way Earl played it. And so you can change it up. So that's a challenge. Take a song you know, figure it out another way. Here's a tip. When we played Cripple Creek, what rolls did y'all use? What rolls do you use in Cripple Creek, typically? Primary roll that you use in Cripple Creek. Somebody? Alternating roll. So here's something that I used to do. I would say to myself, all right, we play Cripple Creek with an alternating roll. Don't ever do that again. For the rest of the afternoon, I'm going to play Cripple Creek, but I'm not going to use an alternating roll. So what could I do? I would give myself an assignment. I'd say, well, let's figure out how to play Cripple Creek with a forward and reverse roll. You should be able to do that. And chances are, if I gave you, let's say you were coming to me for lessons and I taught you Cripple Creek and you figured it out, and hey, you know, they're doing it really well. They came back and they learned their lesson, they practiced, and they can play Cripple Creek just like I showed them. And I say to you, now I want you to go home this week. Your project is Cripple Creek, but no alternating roll. And that's all the instruction that I could give you. And I want to see what you do with it. And so I'm giving you that assignment. I want you to go home this week and work on Cripple Creek without an alternating roll. How do you do it? I can't tell you how to do that. I mean, I could show you how I would do it, but that's not how you would do it. But I will assure you it can be done. I mean, I just played Cripple Creek without an alternating roll. You heard me do it. I did it with a forward roll. But you can do it with a forward and reverse, or you could do it with whatever roll you want. And so I feel like for me, when I sit down to learn a tune, I am thinking in terms of the tune does this, how can I recreate that with skills that I already have? Some of the adults here, did you take wood shop in school? Did anybody take wood shop? I did. And when you start wood shop, you learn some basic skills. And I remember I built a little step stool in wood shop. It was a step stool. It was clearly identifiable as a step stool. It was not particularly fancy, but it was a step stool. That was the first thing I built in wood shop. By the end of the year, I built another step stool. But by the end of that year, I had learned a few more skills, and that step stool looks really pretty. But guess what? Still a step stool, still the same, it still has the same function. So you can take just a handful of skills, doesn't have to be anything fancy, doesn't have to be anything elaborate. You don't have to go download a tab. And don't go download the tab. Just sit and listen to the tune and try to learn it. And here, which takes me to the next little bit, is to listen. You want to listen. You need to be on a good steady diet. You need to be a good steady diet of the banjo music that you want to play. And not to embarrass Alan, but I remember when I was in college, your album Banjo Sandwich has Durang's hornpipe. Is that correct, or was that on?
That's correct.
Good. And I wanted so bad to learn Durang's hornpipe, and so here's what I did. I got my cassette recorder out. I put the album on. I recorded Durang's hornpipe on a 90-minute cassette, nothing but Durang's hornpipe, over and over and over and over and over. And I put that in my car. And then when I was going anywhere in my car, back and forth to college, I listened to that song. I wasn't trying to play Durang's hornpipe, and I'm not going to try to play it today, but when I did finally sit down to try to start to play it, the tune was in my head. I could hum it, I could sing it, I could sing the notes, and I was able to actually try to figure it out. Hey, thanks for the super chat. I got to remember I got people up there too. But so a steady diet where you're listening to the music will help. Being familiar with what you want to play is super helpful. So if there's a tune that you want to learn,
Go finish that thought. I'd love you to share with everybody the first time you heard Alan Mundy.
yeah, oh yeah, that's a fun story. But take whatever tune it is you want to learn, and now you have access to streaming. I mean, that's a wonderful thing. And let's say you wanted to learn a song. What's a banjo song you're working on?
The banjo song I'm working on,
Pudding Mom?
Stop.
Rocky Top. Okay. You can go to any of the music streaming services, type in Rocky Top, and hear 20, 30 different artists play Rocky Top. Create a playlist with nothing but Rocky Top and listen to how everybody plays Rocky Top, and you get it in your head. And then when you start to play, you've got the tune in your head. You're not reading from a piece of tab. Trust yourself, trust the process. You might actually find things that sound like Rocky Top. I bought the Osborne Brothers 45 Rocky Top. I had that, but I also had other recordings of it. And I listened to them all. And I would listen to them a lot before I would even try to play it on the banjo. So listening is a big deal. It's a huge deal. It's something that you can't replace it with anything else. Tab will not replace listening for it. I'm not saying tab is bad. Tab's the devil. Especially for older learners, because you get locked into tab. You get locked into a lot of times. I'm speaking from my own experience. Like I said, I learned to read tab when I was 30 years old, and I forget what tune it was that I learned from tab, and I played it exactly like the tab for a long time. And I finally had to say, I don't want to play it like that anymore. But I would always go back to how I learned it, and it was almost exactly like the tab. And for me, I had to quit playing that song long enough till I forgot it, that when I finally went back to try to play it again, I had to play it my own way. It came up, the tune came up in one of the bands that I was playing with. I went, I used to play that. But I don't play that from the tab anymore. Now I'm going to have to figure this out. And, you know, and a lot of times in a band, I don't know how it was with the Chapmans, but a lot of new songs in bands happen at sound check. And it's like, hey, that's a great tune. We should do that one. It's like, I don't even have a banjo break for it. Well, you've got an hour. And so but I do it that way. So Jeremy asked about first time I heard Alan Mundy. I had been playing banjo a couple of years. We had a little grocery store down the road that had, I lived in a golden time and in a wonderful area that my grocery store had bluegrass albums. They had a little rack setting up near the register, and you could flip through and you could find bluegrass albums. And I found, you know, Lester Flatt, Pinnacle Boys. I mean, all of these albums that I was learning from, and I thought, man, that's pretty cool. Well, one day Mom comes home with Banjo Kid Rides Again. Is that the correct? Yeah. Picks Again. Banjo Kid Picks Again. Brings me that album home. Now, mind you, I've been playing just a couple of years, and I've been figuring out things from recordings. And I put that album on. I don't remember the first song, but I remember listening to it going, I know that's banjo, and I know that that's a human playing that banjo, but it was so, I mean, it was almost like I couldn't figure out even the first notes that was happening because I wasn't ready for it yet. If I recall correctly, I think there was a tab sheet in that album, or that might have been Banjo Sandwich, but I remember a couple of the albums had little tab sheets from time to time, but I couldn't read it, so that wasn't helpful to me. And I remember listening to that going, that's amazing. We had a shortwave radio at the time, and you know, I could listen to stations in Europe, and I would hear like, I think that's German. I know those are people talking. I have no idea what's going on. And that was very much like it was when I was listening to Alan play on Banjo Kid. And I remember telling Mom, I said, I don't think I ever learn any of this. I'll never learn any of this. And she said, well, I'll just take it back to the store. I said, Mom, I don't think you can take an album back to the store once it's open. She says, I'll take it back to the store. Mom's a forceful woman. And she took it back to the store and traded it for some other album. I don't remember what it was. It was years later, I did get the album again. But it was, and at that point, while I definitely had an appreciation for it and could understand a little bit of what was going on. But which leads this. You need to be, it's helpful to be self-aware of where you are in this journey. I mean, there are banjo players in this world like Noam Pikelny, Bela Fleck, Scott Vestal. I mean, I could just continue to list these people, and I listen to them and I go, that's absolutely incredible. And I would never be able to start there. I mean, it was like, wow, I don't know if I can figure this out at all. And I listen to stuff that Scott Vestal does and go, man, that's just absolutely amazing. And I can appreciate it from a distance. I once upon a time thought I was going to be a dobro player, and I made the mistake of buying an album by Jerry Douglas. I thought, hey, I learned to play, you know, Scruggs style banjo listening to Earl play, which, you know, I figured, why not learn to play some dobro too? So I bought the Jerry Douglas album, and you see I'm not up here showing you dobro stuff. It was like, nope, I probably should have started with the Brother Oswald and the Uncle Josh stuff. But I didn't know. It was just an album. It had a dude on the front playing the dobro. I didn't know who he was, and I put that on. It's like, yeah, this is way out there. So be aware of where you are. A lot of students try to bite off more than they can chew. It's okay to progress in little tiny bits and pieces. You don't have to learn it all today. You will not learn it all today. It's good to just, and I feel like that I'm a slow learner. I always have been. I'm a slow reader. I'm a slow learner. It takes a while before a thought forms, and to put anything in this brain takes a whole lot of effort sometimes. So I tend to work on one thing at a time. I do one thing until I'm really good at that thing. And I don't mind to play the same lick over and over until it makes sense. I've got a couple of things that I'm working on. It's like, well, technically it's one thing, but I'm trying to cram it into different. And I've been working on it since January, and it might be next January before I actually have it down. Now, I'm okay with that, but it's something, I am slow, but I will learn it. And so don't try to, don't rush the process. And I know some of you older learners are saying, I got to rush a little bit. I don't have all the time in the world. Yes, you do. It's not a race. You can do this, and you can definitely learn some things. But learn one or two things. Don't try to learn tons of stuff. Learn things that are simple, or learn. You know what you can already do. Look at that and decide, okay, maybe I can spread out a little bit and learn a new lick. Or I'll hear one of the things, wherever you are with your banjo, you should be able to like listen to a banjo player or recording, and you might, if you're already playing, if you listen close, you should be able to identify a lot of the things that you're hearing. Oh, that sounds like an alternating roll. Ooh, it sounded like he did a slide. Oh, that sounds like the same lick from Foggy Mountain Breakdown. Ooh, that's that same lick that they put, here. And that's, so allow yourself to understand that, because you can play, dare I say it, but the secret is you can play almost any bluegrass tune with Cripple Creek and Foggy Mountain Breakdown licks. The licks that you learned in Foggy Mountain Breakdown and the licks that you learned in Cripple Creek, you can play just about anything with those songs. You don't have to learn, if you never learned anything else beyond that. Oh, hello, Mason. Thank you for that. Mason's, I know Mason, and Mason's asking for a song. One of the songs I learned when I was young, I bought a handful of Seldom Seen albums, and this song was one of those that I learned off the Seldom Seen album. Seldom Seen, Ben Eldridge. If y'all are not familiar with Ben Eldridge, look up the Seldom Seen. Listen to Ben play. He's got some cool ideas. And Ben's playing, I will tell you before you dive into it, it's very deceptive. You will think, oh yeah, I can figure that out. And then when you start to figure it out, it's like, okay, maybe not. maybe there's things that I don't understand. So let me play. Okay if I play you a song? Okay, please play a song. Quit talking, Jim. We did this the other day on the live stream. So. Tuning helps, maybe a little. Well, it was good one time, everything was mighty fine. The cold tipples roared day and night. But things, they got slow for no reason that I know, and the ill winds, they hove into sight. The mines all closed down, everybody laid around. There wasn't very much left to do, except stand in that line, get your ration script on time. Woman, I could see it killing you. Now the soft new snows of December lightly fall on my cabin round. Saw the last train from Poor Valley, taking brown-haired Becky Richmond bound. It's been coming on and on, I knew you'd soon be gone. Leaving crossed your mind every day. But then you said to me, things are bad back home, you see. I guess I better be on my way. I should blame you now, but I never could somehow. A miner's wife you weren't cut out to be. It wasn't what you thought, just some dreams that you bought when you left your home and you ran away with me. Now the soft new snows of December lightly fall on my cabin round. Saw the last train from Poor Valley taking brown hair Becky Richmond bound. There you go. Thank you. Which brings us, do y'all sing? Do you sing? Do you sing and play? Do you sing and play? You gotta start. You gotta start. Your career as a banjo player will be very limited if you gotta be able to sing just a little bit. You might not have to be able to sing a lot.
I was going to ask for that. Was it hard for you to learn to continue a role while singing? Did you practice that?
I started singing with the banjo right in the very beginning. I sang Cripple Creek from the very first. When I played Cripple Creek, you know, going up a Cripple Creek, going in a run. I was singing from the very beginning. So as far as trying to learn to play and sing, I don't really have a recollection of that. I just started doing it to begin with. And the earlier you start doing that, the more helpful it's going to be. It's definitely a situation where you can play and sing, but you do have to practice playing and singing. And so if there's songs that you like to sing, play and sing. You can do it. Alan, did you sang? But you did. I've seen it. and it is challenging. And sometimes playing while you're singing, it is difficult. I mean, and I know it's difficult because if you watch J.D. Crowe play and sing, he doesn't. J.D. would sing and stop playing, and which that's fine. My absolute favorite person that played and sang and did it so well and played really intricate, neat, up the neck, back up, and cool licks was Garland Shoppe. Played with a number of different folks. Played with the Bluegrass Alliance, played with the Whites, and played with Jim and Jesse. And Garland played and sang, and Garland could play all of the cool up the neck, back up stuff and just sing like it was no big deal. But either Garland practiced a lot or he had two brains, one or the other, and could separate that. But it's definitely something that if you're learning to play, for sure, spend some time singing. You're going to have to sing. And that's one of the things that I push on all my students. I had a student, Trevor Holder. Trevor has turned into a pretty good banjo player, and when he was learning to play, he would ask me questions. He said, "What about playing and singing?" I said, "You're going to have to do it." He says, "I'm not much of a singer." I said, "If you're going to get anywhere with this, especially, it would be a good idea to be able to sing just a little bit." And he spent a lot of time learning to play and sing, and you can, and you will, but just give yourself time, give yourself some room to do it, and don't be embarrassed about it. I mean, why be embarrassed? You're playing the banjo. It's a loud instrument. It will cover a lot of craziness. So that's that. Let's talk about any questions on three finger, what I do, why I do what I do, how I came up with what I do. If there are any questions about that, I'm an open book. Any questions about pretty much anything within reason or out of reason?
Not a lot of questions, but not necessarily about three fingers.
Okay, all right. Well, we're gonna do some old time too. I want y'all to try some old time banjo. This banjo, if anybody's curious, it is a Recording King M5. M as in mayhem, murder, money, mitochondria, powerhouse of the cell. I got this this banjo is on permanent loan from the fine folks at Recording King.
Dandy, man.
I've enjoyed playing that banjo. It's been my primary instrument since 2013. I've owned a variety of things. Old time banjo. You don't have to have two banjos to play bluegrass and old time banjo, but it's an excuse to have more than one banjo. Do you have multiple banjos? Yeah. Yes. Do you have multiple banjos? Not yet. Not yet. How about you? You just got the one. All right. There's time. Alan, how many banjos do you have? 4? Okay. That's respectable. That's respectable. We won't talk about how many I have. I got them all out one time to take pictures for insurance, you know, and my wife at the time, she came out in the yard, had them all out in the yard, and she said, 9? I had 2 loaned out. So I have several. It's because, one, I play multiple styles. It's nice to have multiple banjos. And like when I started playing old time banjo, and I still do from time to time, I have friends that play for contra dances, old time stuff. And at some point during the evening, we're going to play in a different tuning. In old time banjo, we play in all the tunings. So instead of me stopping everybody, I needed another banjo. So, you know, I need another open back. Well, this, you know, then next thing you know, you've got 12 banjos. So old time banjo, you'll see that I've switched off to an open back instrument. So just no resonator, no tone ring in this instrument. Some old time open back banjos will have a tone ring of sorts. Vega had the White Lady and the tubaphone, and there's a variety of different tone rings. This is just a wooden rim, and this is just a preference. That's my preference. There's a RK26 hanging back there on the wall, and I think it has a White Lady tone ring in it. And I mean, I'm sure the Chapmans would love for you to look at that. My preference of sound on old time banjo is just a wooden rim. That's just kind of what I like. But that doesn't mean that that's what you like. I'm also handicapped at the moment. I blew out a fingernail just a couple of days ago, and it's barely there. And I have not been to the nail salon to get 2 nails done. And I usually have gone, and when I do go, I usually just get these 2 done. I just need to.
How long?
Just lengthwise, like for me, I would probably add 1/8 of an inch to what I've got. I don't want a super long nail, but it needs, you know, it needs to be something. So when I strike down on the string, I'm getting nail and not meat. And right tonight, I'm getting a lot of meat instead of nail. But that's okay. We shall endure. Show goes on. My nails are, I have good nails. I will say that, but you know, they don't endure everything. I don't really have nail tips for you if you're learning clawhammer, but eat your veggies, you know, eat a good balanced diet, you know, add some biotin to your supplements or whatever. I think that seems to work. It does for me. But just in clawhammer, you'll notice I've taken my picks off. You don't need them. Grandpa Jones, when he would play, Grandpa Jones played old-timey style, Fralin style banjo. That's downstroke. Sounds like that sound. And when he played with his band, and there'd be electric guitar, bass, whatever, he would wear a finger pick backwards on his picking finger. And I don't remember if Grandpa wore it on his index or his middle finger. I can play with both my index finger and my social finger. Those of you who have watched my lessons, you know about my social finger. Some people call it your driving finger. but it's your index and your middle finger. So, but you want, excuse me, you want a decent nail. You don't have to have a nail. Donald Zupp, great clawhammer player, he doesn't have nails. He just plays with the meat of his finger, and it sounds. So it's whatever you get used to. Me, I definitely prefer the sound of a nail. Like if I go to play a contra dance, then sometimes I will wear out a nail, break a nail during that, and I can actually exist with my ring finger. It's not very accurate, but we can make that happen. So let's talk about this old-time style of playing. So the clawhammer style that I play comes from the stroke style banjo playing, which would have been popular in the early to mid 1800s. And you can find tons of old banjo tutors that teach that style. And it's stroke style, and everything is a downstroke. And there's a lot of neat little techniques where that comes from. That stroke style of playing is an absolute, I mean, it's an exact replica of what the West Africans were doing with the accounting. Have you studied any of the accounting players a little bit, like the Shoppe family? It's that same motion with the right hand. Whereas you got 5 strings, the accounting, big instrument, 3 strings, but 1 short string, and it's played in this downstroke style. Very elaborate style, worth looking up. If you are not familiar with the accounting, Akonting, look that up. It's amazing. It's a wonderful instrument. The rhythms are great, and the Shoppe family, they're in the Gambia, that area of West Africa, and it's amazing. It's wonderful music, and it's a lot of fun. It's extremely rhythmic music, but doesn't have a lot of notes. 3 strings. So melodically, it's very simple. Rhythmically, it's incredible. It's very complex, which makes you wonder, like, when banjo type instruments started being made in South America, Caribbean, a lot of those early banjos that the enslaved were building and creating would have been 2 or 3 and 4 stringed instruments. A lot of times 2 strings and a drone. Some were 3 strings and a drone, but they were made very much like the accounting, with a gourd for the body, with a skin stretched, dried and stretched, and those instruments. But everybody liked it, and people thought, hey, that's great. But the problem was playing Western music on an instrument with just limited range was difficult. And so you will hear stories where Joel Walker Sweeney, invented the 5-string banjo. Well, that's not entirely true. Not sure that Joel invented much of anything except a lot of popularity for the instrument. I mean, he was kind of the Elvis of his day. But if Joel added a string to the banjo, you know which one he added? It wasn't this one. It was that one. Because for Western music, we needed more notes. We needed to be able to go lower. And if you look at like a lot of the early banjos from the mid 1800s to about 1880 or so, you will see banjos with 5 strings, 6 strings, 7 strings. You will see lots and lots of notes because they were trying to play Western music on this instrument. And so, but 5 strings seems to works for me. That seems to be the most common solution. So clawhammer, let's just, I'm sorry, I got to move my lav. Maybe we didn't offend anybody. So, if you've never played Clawhammer, have you ever tried? Have you ever tried? Well, let's try. If you got your banjo, let's try some Clawhammer. Bunch of three-finger pickers in here. You might as well get exposed to some Clawhammer. We'll get you over to the dark side. And just to give you a little different. So I play old-time banjo, I play bluegrass banjo, and definitely different communities of people, and definitely different attitudes toward the banjo from the old-time players to the bluegrass players. Bluegrass players, they're going to ask you a lot of questions. They're going to, what kind of bridge do you have on there? What's your head tightened to? What kind of tone rings in that banjo? Who made the neck? They're going to ask you questions like that. Old-time banjo players, they've got questions too. They want to know what kind of whiskey you brought. Typically. They don't care what kind of tone rings in your instrument, just what are you carrying today? What did you bring? And it's definitely a different attitude. And in old-time banjo world, you're going to see all kind of different instruments. In the bluegrass world, they all look alike. Even, I mean, the neckville looks a little different, but it's still, they all look alike. In the old-time banjo world, you're going to see all kind of different looks and styles of instruments. The rims will be made different. You know, you're just going to see a lot of different things. Like this banjo, you notice I'm missing frets up here. And if you also notice I'm missing part of the fingerboard up here. They scooped out a bit to give me room to play over the neck. Because you know in bluegrass banjo, when we play near the bridge, it's really bright. When we play up here, it's a little more mellow. If you play up here, it's even more mellow. And also in old time, so in bluegrass banjo, I see all of y'all have got this down. At least the ones with the banjo, you got it right here. That's where bluegrass banjo lives, in your lap. It's right there. Old time banjo, most old time banjo players will put their banjo. Here, I don't need the strap. I'm a firm believer in a strap, though. Well, they'll put it on their leg, over here on their right leg, if they're right-handed. And that's a good, comfortable place for old-time banjo. And when you put your arm up here, you see where my arm lands? It's right there on that, right at that neck joint, right there. And that's just, one, I've got a big, long arm, but even with a smaller arm like yours, you can see it just kind of lands right there where it's supposed to. So let's learn the first thing that I teach anybody on Clawhammer. So you're going to make your hand into a C shape, kind of like that. It's nothing fancy, it's just this thing. The motion for Clawhammer it's not like down and up like strumming a guitar. It's totally not. It's to and from. Grandpa Jones refers to rapping or knocking. I was rapping before rapping was rapping. It's the same motion that you knock on the door. Look at my arm. Everything I do will be exaggerated, but the motion is this. This is the motion. It's not this. It's toward the banjo, like you're going to hit the banjo, like if you were knocking on a door. That's the motion of the Clawhammer style. It's toward the instrument, not across the instrument. I know there will be cases where across the strings is going to have to happen, but initially, no. We're going to exaggerate and make that go toward. So I want you to get your hand up here, way away from, and you're going to dive in, and I want you to take either your pointer finger or your social finger, and I want you to hit the first string. And when you hit it, you can go all the way through and land on the head if you want to, or wherever, but you're just going to come to it and just hit that first string. So you're going to come out and you're going to come in and hit that string just like that. And once you land, notice what my thumb is doing. Does everybody see my thumb? Now, one of the things as a bluegrass banjo player, we're used to wearing a thumb pick. So we keep our thumb straight. You don't have to in Clawhammer, but I would recommend, at least at first, bending your thumb just a little bit, so when you land, you're going to land with your thumb just flat on that string, just like that. So you're going to boom, and you land. Now we've landed. When you pick your hand back up, and that pivot is at your shoulder, it's not your hand. When I pick my hand back up, remember, I've landed on that string. What's going to happen when I pick my hand up? I didn't pick that string, it just happened on its own. I hit my down, and when I come back up, it picks it. It happens by itself. It's automagic. So you're going to pivot in. So your pivot point is on your armrest if you have one. I know, it feels weird. It feels weird. And it, especially coming at it from the bluegrass world, especially if you've been picking, it feels really weird. Put something on television that's mindless. I used to watch wrestling. Put on the Georgia Championship Wrestling, Gordon Soley, he'd be announcing the wrestling matches, and I would just turn the volume down. I could watch Tommy Wildfire Rich, I could watch Tojo Yamamoto, Jerry Lawler. I could watch all those guys with the volume down. It was just mindless, gave my eyes something to do while I was sitting on the couch going. And you want to do that until that makes sense. Now, when you do that, I don't want you to think about picking anything. You're going to keep that hand as locked as best you can. So if you'll notice, like when I do that down, I'm not picking with my thumb. I'm just holding that string and pulling my hand away. So I'm gonna walk around a little bit. So if hopefully y'all can keep up. And I'm gonna come around. I'm gonna touch your arm and your hand, and I'm gonna help you. If you have a problem with that, say hey. You know. But people ask me all the time, Jim, do you do online lessons? No, because I can't reach out and move your fingers for you. I like to be able to, because especially with old time banjo, it's really hard to explain it, but I can show it to you. Let me see what you're doing. Oh, sorry, catching my back. Old man just stood up. So that pivot, you're going to come down, and yeah, and you're going to do that. And so that pivot is right there, and don't be afraid to exaggerate it until it makes sense. So it's not so much your hand; it's that motion, and you're already doing it. Let me see what you're doing. Yep, that's good. Because you're already playing Clawhammer, so I'm not showing you anything. Yeah, so when you go down, I want your thumb to, so when you go down, let that thumb land right there. And then when you come back up, yeah, so it's all one motion. Let's see what you got. Yep, so you're gonna go down, and when you come back up, it's gonna, so that finger's gonna, so you're gonna go down, and either middle or, so that finger's going to hit, and when you come back up, that thumb's going to ring that fifth string. So go down, and then bing, bong, bing, just like that. There you go. That's the motion. All right, let's see here. Yeah, but it'll work better if your banjo's up here. And now see, that pivot is going to be Boom, boom, boom. So like you're gonna knock on the door. Just make a fist. Just make a fist. And so like if you was knocking on the door, it's that motion. Just like that. Well, he's pliable. Where'd you get this kid? So you're gonna go down, boom, and when you come back up, that fifth string's gonna sound. So down. So don't pick with your fingers. Keep them bent about like that. All right. And then here, I'm gonna drive. But boom. Don't worry about picking. If I miss, I miss. And then boom, 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 boom. And so you're gonna have to spend time watching wrestling, or golf, or anything that's mindless. Until it makes sense. And it's not something, don't expect to just, I tell students this all the time, don't expect to just be able to do it. If it's something that you could just do, then it's not, then, well, what's the fun in that? But being able to do just, that's the first step. Now, I know if you go online, you'll hear, well, you need to learn a bum ditty. And Pete Seeger talked about it in his book. And so it's just a quarter note. And then you're going to do that again. And next time you're going to sound the fifth string. Dun, da, da, dun, da, da, dun, da, da. Now the cool thing about a banjo is we are tuned in open G. It's handy. I mean, we got a chord, and we can play a world of stuff just on the first string. Noodle with that. Experiment. See what happens. If you already know some slides and hammers, you should be able to take your Cripple Creek that you know and play it pretty much with the same left hand you've already got. You got slides. So you can take things you already know with your left and your right hand just with that. But start out just learning to hit down and then up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, until you can just do that without thinking about it. And then try other strings.
Are you just hitting 5 and 1?
Yeah, just 5 and 1. So 1 and then 5 is all I'm doing there. But you can move the other. Same motion, and all I'm doing to do that is I'm adjusting the width of that claw as to, okay, first string, claw is open pretty big. Fourth string, claw is pretty small, closes up. And all I'm doing is adjusting the width of the claw in the claw hammer as to what string I want to hit. And just
doing that all with your social finger?
yes, just all with my social finger. Or you can do it with your index. But I use my social finger unless I completely destroy the nail, and then sometimes I use my ring finger to do it. It's a little sloppy because I don't really use that finger for that, but it can be done. I've actually played a contra dance where I had to use my pinky because I blew through all my nails. And that's when I started going to the salon and getting acrylics that hold up. And so if you're going to play a lot of clawhammer, they make picks, they make clawhammer picks, but you press on nails, stick on nails, stuff like that work fine too. The dipped nails work really well too. I prefer the acrylics. They feel more natural, but the dipped ones work as well. So it gives you an option, and you can get pretty colors. So that's an option as well. So that's Clawhammer. It will take you a little while to get used to playing. The other thing that's fun with Clawhammer, and as a bluegrass player, one of the things I will tell you, once you learn these motions, and if you're coming at it from a bluegrass mindset, get out of all the tunings that you're familiar with. Get out of G tuning, get out of C tuning, get out of Rubin D tuning, get out of those tunings. Tune to something different. One of the first tunings that I usually with my Clawhammer students is what they call sawmill or G modal tuning. And so you take your second string and you raise it up to a C. And so now you're in a different tuning, so your things that you think you know may not work anymore. And so it's a little reboot. Changes your mindset on how that's going to work. So new ideas there. Find other tunings. So modal, double C. Have you experimented with that yet? Double C is a fun tuning. So it's G, C, G, C, D. Now you can play a ton of stuff, what I like to refer to as mountain dulcimer style. You can play just things on the first string. Double C. Trying different tunings in the Clawhammer style is, well, especially if you're coming at it from a bluegrass mindset, it forces you to think differently. So here, I'm going to go back to standard. I'm going to show you something else. Remember I told you when I found Mom's old banjo, I found along with it the Pete Seeger book. And so the first thing I learned out of the Pete Seeger book was the way Pete uppicks. It's very much like Clawhammer, but what you're going to do, you're going to pick up with your index finger. So pick up on the first string. Good, easy enough. Now I want you to strum down with your finger, and now I want you to pick the fifth string with your fifth, or with your thumb. So pick up, strum 5. Sounds very much like Clawhammer, but that's called up picking. Some people call it Seeger style. There's a lot of tunes that you can do up picking. And that's all with up picking. So my melody note. So I'm playing my melody with my index on that. So I pick up, and then I do a ditty. Bum, ditty. So. And I had a couple of cousins and that played kind of like that. So that's, I saw that done. I didn't understand it, but I did learn it from the Pete Seeger book. And it's just up picking. And it's, especially if you blow out a nail, that's really handy. Now I don't have to worry about a nail. The strums are just the strums, and I can pick up. I don't need a nail for that. So that's up picking. Any questions about any of that? We are at an hour and a half at this point. I just talk a lot. It's what I do. So questions. I'm an open book, y'all. If you got questions about how I learn, or questions about any of the styles, I mean, you know, I am fairly able to answer pretty much anything. So don't be shy.
Jim, if you wouldn't mind, whenever we do get questions, could you repeat them for the live stream?
Absolutely.
Just in case.
All right. Let's see what's going on in the live stream. All right.
Do you ever play, I mean, I've seen Bailiff play like electric banjos. Do you ever do anything with that?
I have owned a number of electric banjos in the past. I don't currently own an electric banjo. I do have a banjo with a pickup that I do plug in. I play with a country band, and so there's 2 or 3 songs, you know, that have banjo type stuff in it, and yeah, so I do plug in and can get really loud if we need to, with stomp boxes and everything. So yeah, yeah, pickup is a great option if you're especially if you want to play out and be loud and be heard. And in the country band, for me, playing with a microphone is totally out of the question because I can't compete with the Telecaster and the drummer. It's just not going to happen. So I have to be able to plug in, and plugged in is good. And I will tell you this: when you start putting a pickup in your banjo, and like the banjo that I plug in regularly, I've got it stuffed with a towel. I just have a towel rolled up inside of it just to eliminate the feedback, and it's plugged in. It's not going to sound great, but it's going to sound banjo enough that it works. And then I use one of LR Bag's voice print DI, and it actually sounds pretty good. It sounds almost like it's acoustic, but it's definitely plugged in. I like Acoustic Shoppe, they're a Deering dealer. They can probably hook you up with a Deering Crossfire if you wanted one, like what Bailiff plays. I had one of those for a while, and I had a student that needed it more than I did, so I let that one go. But it's a great, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love to play the electric. I like to plug in. I like to be loud. You can do some fun stuff. You know, there's a lot of neat options with that.
Why do you have the bag?
Question is, why do I have the bag in here? Yeah, that's my Dollar General bag. Y'all have those, right? Like every 2 miles, right? So obviously it's not like killing a whole lot, but so what the bag does, so it's kind of ringy. So a lot of people will take just a rolled up sock or a shop rag or a piece of sponge. I have found that the Dollar General bag or various little shopping bags like this, and not wadded up into much of a ball and just tucked in there just a little bit, kind of loosely, it eliminates. Doesn't make it any quieter, but it eliminates a lot of the ringiness. And so I use just a little bag in there to make that just a little tonal difference. I've used sponges, I've used socks, I've used, for years I used just a standard old red shop rag, you know. That's what that's for. See if there's...
We have one a little earlier, Jim. Do you have a recommendation for an armrest on an open back?
Recommendation for an armrest on an open back. If you don't have an armrest, it really depends on your open back and how your brackets are laid out. But the Dr. Arm, the wooden ones, and I know Acoustic Shoppe's got those. Those are really, is that? Yeah, yeah. Those are super comfortable. Neckville makes a wooden one that'll mount, and they'll mount pretty much on anything. So that's handy. You don't necessarily, I mean, the armrest is there more for comfort than anything, but it's nice to have that instead of being on the sharp edge of your tension hoop. So armrest is really handy.
Do finger picks affect your playing in any ways?
Yes. So the question is, do finger picks affect my playing in any way? At first, I know most people when they start playing, I get a lot of questions about finger picks. It's like, do I really need finger picks? No, but if you're playing bluegrass banjo, yes, you're going to need finger picks. At first, they feel clunky. They feel like you can't feel anything. You don't know where the strings are. You get used to them. The finger picks allow you, one, to be louder. And they also allow you to be faster. You're a little quicker off the strings. I can't really operate much without them in bluegrass style. I mean, I can play some finger style stuff, and I play some classic style banjo too, a little bit, not enough to really brag about, but then I don't use the finger picks. But yeah, the finger picks are definitely a must-have. If you're not using finger picks, find you some that you like. I don't have anything that I could tell you that's going to be right for you. Finger picks are cheap enough that you can try different ones and find ones that you like. Thumb picks, I use the J.D. Crow Blue Chip thumb pick. That's just Matt at Blue Chip gave me a pick back in 2009, and I used it up until about 2017, and I dropped it in a pasture at a festival, and even went back the next day with a metal detector and could not find it. It just went through a portal. I don't know what happened to it. I mean, I'm literally standing there, and I drop my picks, and I think they got to be right there. And finger picks, thumb pick, they were gone. I mean, I'm prowling through the grass and didn't find it. But the Blue Chip, I really do like the Blue Chip thumb picks. They seem to hold up. They're very slick. I don't know what thumb pick you're using. Yeah, the Fred Kelly slick pick. Those are super popular. And you've got a blue one. Yes, same thing. Yeah, so find something that works for you. I use the Ernie Ball finger picks. Why? Because, not because I thought that they sounded great. When I first tried them, I absolutely hated them. I had gone on a trip with I guess it was just Mom, and we had gone up to Virginia, and I was practicing, and I was getting ready to put my banjo away, and I dropped a finger pick, and in the process of finding my finger pick, I stepped on it, and when I tried to straighten it out, it broke, and then somebody had given me a set of the Ernie Ball little pointy picky picks at a fiddler's convention, and I tried them and hated them and threw them in my case. I had them in my case. Well, we were in Virginia for a month, and I had those picks, and Mom's like, Mom, it's like, you have picks, you can use those, you've got picks. Yeah, it's like, well, okay. So I started using them, and now I can't use anything else. So, but that's what I'm used to. And I think that you're going to find that the picks that you have and you're using every day, those are going to be the ones that you get used to. Just that'll be your picks, and they'll last you like regular standard set of picks, like the Dunlops or the Pro picks.
I use Pro picks. I use Speed pick.
Yeah. Oh, and you got the Speed pick, Fred Kelly Speed pick. Those are the finger picks are gonna last you just forever. I mean, Alan, did you ever wear out a set of picks completely?
I've actually, yes.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I mean, they will wear out, and you can wear, the tips will flatten. I had a set of Nationals, and the tips were almost blunt by the time, but the Ernie Balls are what I use, and these wear out. People complain when they go, they think, oh, I want to try those, and then, why do I have to buy 24 of them? I said, you're going to need them, because they do wear out. They're fairly thin, and so they do wear out, but that's pretty much all I can use. But yeah, the finger picks do affect how I play. And I had gone to see a friend of mine. He was playing a show. He didn't know I was coming, and this was years ago. And he spotted me, and it was like, and so at the midpoint of the show, they stopped to sell CDs and tapes and stuff. And he said, hey, why don't you come up and do a number with us on stage? I said, Gary, I don't have my picks. He says, you can use mine. I don't think I can. And and so he hands me his picks, and I'm backstage bending them, trying to make them work. And it's like that was so hard to put on strange picks, strange banjo, strange set list. I'm going, oh, this is not going to be pretty. Yes, picks definitely affect you, especially if you've got somebody else's on. It's like wearing somebody else's shoes. Where they wore 'em out is not where I wore 'em out. And so it's, but yeah, picks matter. Other questions?
Question about calluses on your left hand.
Uh-huh.
And just pain and working through that. And what do you advise new players, other than adjusting the action and strings? What you or Alan could answer this.
Yeah. So, question is about calluses on your left hand and how to deal, getting to that point, pretty much. Because when you start playing, you have no calluses on your fingers, and the strings hurt. It doesn't matter how well your instrument is set up. You can have the lowest action in the world. It can be just super easy to play, and your fingers are going to hurt. And not only are they going to hurt, your fingers are soft. So when you push down on the string, your finger wants to flatten out. It's going to spread out. It's going to mushroom out. And which means you're having to press down extra hard to get to the note to sound clear. And so the solution is you develop a callus. Well, how do you do that? You play a lot. And I don't know that there's any shortcut to that other than play every day. So a few years ago, I had a 3-month, wasn't my choice, but I had 3 months off from banjo or guitar, everything. I wasn't, for 3 months, couldn't play anything. And when I was finally given the go-ahead to go back to playing, I didn't have 3 months, no more calluses, none. So this is a very, 3 years ago, I know exactly what it was like to build calluses. And I started playing a couple of hours every day, and it sucked. I mean, it was very uncomfortable, very miserable, but I just kept playing. And I knew when to quit. It's like, okay, that hurts, that's enough, I'm done, I'm not going to play anymore today, and then I'm going to come back at it again tomorrow. But I guess for me, I thought about it like when I was a kid. We played outside and ran around barefoot and could run in the gravel wherever barefooted, but not at first. In this, through the winter you had to wear shoes and socks because it was cold. But in the summer you could get rid of the shoes and socks, and always that first week or so out running around outside barefooted on the hot gravel and in the gravel. And of course, I was a kid in Florida. We didn't really have gravel. We had coquina, which is little tiny shells, if any of y'all know what that is, and they're sharp. And that's what we had. That's what our yard was, coquina. And until Dad brought in loads of sand and dirt for us to have a yard. But your feet, it took a few weeks. But I think my calluses, they came back within a couple of weeks. It took a couple of weeks to finally have calluses that felt like they were okay. But I had a buddy I used to play music with. He was a guitar player, and Randy was a complete wimp. And he carried around a little bottle of toothache medicine, Ambisol, and a little liquid toothache medicine. And he'd take the cap off and hold it, and he'd just touch it to the tip of each of his fingers. It was just a little anesthetic, so he could, all right, I'm ready for the next set. I've seen people use super glue. I've seen paint a little super glue. But I just feel like, now the Ambisol, I'm cool with that. Super glue, you're just prolonging the agony. You're putting a little extra skin there with the super glue, and it's just gonna make it worse after a while. So I guess there's not an easy answer to what to do about your calluses, other than you just got to get through that part. How long did it take you to get calluses? Do you remember? No. You don't remember. How about you? Do you remember? How about you? But you can pick up a hot biscuit now. It's like, do you remember anything about calluses, Alan?
Just that they, before you got them, your fingertips burned.
Oh yeah, Alan's saying like before you get them, your fingertips burned. I didn't start out, banjo was not my first instrument. My first instrument was mandolin because it looked small and very unintimidating. Oh, I was so wrong. Not only did I have calluses, I had blisters, and not only did you have a blister on each finger with a mandolin, you had 2 little blisters on each finger, and boy, it hurt like stink. And I mean, I'm one of those kids that played until my fingers bled. I mean, even though it hurt, I still had to keep playing and figure this instrument out. And then so by the time I got the banjo, calluses were pretty well built. If you want calluses fast, take up mandolin, take up guitar. Banjo strings are pretty light, pretty small. You really don't need a lot. I play banjo primarily. I play guitar occasionally with mostly with the country band, but not enough that I have what I would call guitar player calluses. My fingers are still pretty soft because they're banjo player calluses. But you definitely need them. And as your calluses build, when I press down on my finger, it doesn't splay out. And you really can't tell, but it pushes up to it doesn't spread out. It just kind of pushes up. And then when I touch a string, I can touch it fairly lightly without my finger spreading out and touching other strings. But when you first start, you probably notice, like when you put your finger down, it touches other strings. That's just part of the process.
I was just going to say, to that point, I think the thing that's telling your body to create calluses is the pain. So
the pain, yeah.
Avoid the pain because it's the one saying, hey, I better build some calluses here because it hurts.
Yeah, so Jeremy's saying that, the thing that develops the callus is the pain, and your body says, no, that hurts. We got to fix that. And so that's Alexa on the chat here says, and avoid hand washing dishes. Always avoid hand washing dishes. No hand lotion.
Dwayne on here has asked a few times, would you consider learning the banjo is like the alphabet? So many letters equals so many licks. So he's basically saying, you learn all these licks, you can make sentences just like you can with the alphabet, and then you can make phrases and melodies. Or is it different in your mind?
Yeah, Dwayne's asking basically like learning licks and tricks and different things. Is it kind of like learning the alphabet or phrases? And for me, yes, it kind of is. I mean, let's think about like that lick. That's Foggy Mountain Breakdown lick, but where else is that? It's in Rocky Top. It's everywhere. And so, yeah, we can take that lick and we can use it in a ton of stuff. We can take that Cripple Creek roll and slide. We can use that. We can use those licks in different places. And so, yeah, you can develop a catalog of licks that you can use in different songs. Hate to pick on Alan, but like in your Dear Old Dixie on Banjo Sandwich, you've got this cool, probably the melodic lick of all time. And I've never heard you use that anywhere except Dear Old Dixie. But that lick could be extracted from that song and used all kind of different places. And so licks are portable. There was a guy, Andy Cushing, used to sell these things called lick cards. And they were just like, here are G licks, here are C licks, here's D licks, here's A lick. And if you knew your chord progression, you could just deal them out, just a series of licks and create a break. Would it be a good break? Probably not, but it would be a functional break. It would be something that would get you there. So yeah, to answer that question, yeah, you can take just a catalog of licks and turn them into a song, or at least decent backup.
I find that I deal with some tension in my right hand after
practicing sometimes. I wonder if you have any tips for how to deal with that, how to kind of get rid of it, get through it.
Yeah, don't get tense. I think just playing a lot, and a lot of times tension, I know for me, tension happens when I'm not super comfortable. If, you know, especially working on new material a lot of time, then I start to feel tense. If I'm trying to play faster than maybe I can through a certain piece, then you start to feel a little tension. And I think tension, for me, it's usually more of unfamiliarity than anything. And so that's something, and that's another one of those things that kind of fixes itself over time because you're aware of it. If you know, a lot of times identifying the problem is the way to fix it. So yeah, tension in your hand, if you're aware of it, be mindful. What was I doing when I first noticed it? Maybe, am I learning something new? Or it could just be fatigue, depending on how long you've played. If you had a 45-minute or hour and a half long practice session, then yeah, maybe, you know, that could just definitely be fatigue. I know, like, I'll occasionally do a show with Lou Amp, and Lou will go and do something, like, especially if it's a party or a private gig. Sometimes it'll be like, well, we got to do an hour and a half, and we'll just do an hour and a half set. Well, my hands are tired by the end of an hour and a half set. I would like a break at some point. And then I feel some tension in my forearm and what. But it's, yeah, I think that could just be fatigue, but it's also familiarity, and just slow down, and then just, and build up to it. You know, you don't have to be able to play it today. But I think through time, by just being mindful of it, I think the tension is one of those things kind of like pick noise. You know, once you realize that you've got pick noise, then your brain starts sorting out ways to make the pick noise go away. I mean, pick noise, and nobody asked about pick noise, but I will say this. One of the things I've identified with a lot of students with pick noise, most of the time it means you're slowing down before you get to the string. You're anticipating hitting that string, and you've slowed down, and it gives the string a chance to vibrate against your pick. So be sure to pick through. Other questions?
Question from YouTube that is kind of piggybacking off of that. What are your thoughts on how long a practice session should be?
So YouTube question is, how long should a practice session be? Long enough. If you are just starting out, I mean, you could literally get done with your practice session in 10 or 15 minutes. You just don't have a lot to practice. But as you learn more and your stamina improves, my practice sessions range anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours, depending on what I'm working on. But usually, I mean, and I say 45 minutes, at this point, it takes me a good 30 to 45 minutes just to feel like I'm finally warmed up. Yeah, as my hands have gotten older and I've got a little bit of arthritis, it takes me a little longer to get to moving and get my fingers limbered up. And so I've got to get through that before practice actually starts to feel like something worthwhile. I mean, of course you can't tell by looking at me, but like when I go to the gym, I spend probably a good 15 minutes just doing stretches and warm-up stuff before I ever touch anything heavy. Yeah, it takes a minute, and same for picking. You know, it takes a while to get warmed up. But a good practice session really depends on how much you're working on. What's your standard practice session?
Questionable.
Question. Now, when I was your age, my practice session lasted pretty much all day. I remember getting up before school and practicing before school in the morning. And then when I got home from school, I did my gardening chores. I come inside and I played until somebody hollered for me to come to supper. And then I'd gobble down my supper, and then I would go and play until Dad yelled at me to go to bed. And then I would go to my closet and sit in the closet with the door shut and practice banjo. Now I know they could still hear it, but I spent a lot of time playing every day. Back then, when I was your age, I might have put 6, 7, 8 hours a day into playing the banjo. How much do you practice? 30 minutes? You know, we've all heard things like it takes 10,000 hours to be, you know, good at a thing. I don't think it takes that many, but if we even agreed that 2,500 hours would be enough practice time where you could survive at a jam session somewhere, how long is it going to take you to put in 2,500 hours at 30 minutes a day? So that's 5,000 days. Is that right? Is that right? No, I don't know. However many days.
15 years.
So the more time that you can put in on the front end, and you know, be thoughtful with your practice sessions too, but also give yourself a chance to play. Just spend a good portion of your day just playing the banjo. Don't make it work. Make it fun. Play. Enjoy. We call it playing music. We don't call it working music. We don't call it, you know. I don't know that I've ever practiced. I've always just played. And I play, you know, and that's still kind of what I do.
What are some ideas for rhythm accompaniment when you're not playing lead?
So the question is ideas for rhythm. I do speak this language. What ideas for rhythm accompaniment when you're not playing lead? So in bluegrass banjo, it really depends. In a bluegrass band, in a bluegrass band we have different roles. You've got a guitar player who plays rhythm. You got a mandolin player that can chop and play some chops, and a banjo player you can roll or you can chop. You don't want to be doing something that somebody else is already doing. So if you're playing with a mandolin player and they're chopping, you probably don't want to chop. You might want to roll quietly. If a guitar player is taking a break and you've got a mandolin player chopping, the question is, what do I do now? Well, it depends. Do you have another guitar player in the band? Oh, you don't? It's just you? Then you might want to play some low-sounding rolls that are kind of monotonous. Just something that you can do that's not going to be playing the melody and not stepping on anybody else's lead break. I play with a group. It's basically a bluegrass orchestra. We have all of the instruments. We have fiddle, dobro, mandolin, guitar, banjo, bass. And it's like, it leaves a lot of questions in my mind. What do I do now? You got a mandolin taking a break, and the dobro player, he's decided he wants to chop. Now, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Because the guitar player's playing the rhythm. I could stand around and look pretty, but usually I'll just find some roll or some backup that's separate from what anybody else is doing. If I have to sing and play, then I'm playing just the most basic roll that I can and that I can do and not have to think about. But just simple rolls. I mean, even if you don't do any, if you've not explored that style of backup, you can just play rolls over chords. So like, all right, skip to my loo. Well, lost my partner, what'll I do? Lost my partner, what'll I do? Lost my partner, what'll I do? Skip to my loo, my darling. And I'm just playing rolls, and that'll work pretty much in any situation. But if somebody else, if you're playing with another banjo player and they're rolling, you know, and we got the banjo band going, then you might want to vamp. But backup is one of those things that take it in tiny bites, tiny bits and pieces. I do have a YouTube series on backup banjo and just starts with rolling over chords. And then we do some vamping and then some up the neck licks and different things like that. But other than playing lead, just basic rolls over chords is the easiest place to start. And whatever roll you're comfortable with, whatever roll that you can do and not have to think about, that's the one to start with. Then add something else later. Other questions? Anything? Oh?
So whenever I'm playing really fast and I start smiling, you do that too?
Smiling?
Yeah. You play faster?
No, but that's a wonderful skill to have. I have resting banjo face when I play, but being able to smile genuinely while you're playing, especially, oh, that's such a wonderful skill. I wish I'd have had that. I did not have that, but yeah, and I don't know how common that would be in the bluegrass world. If you look around, you just don't see a lot of those smiling bluegrass players, but that's...
whenever I speed up, I start smiling.
You
It just kind of happens.
Well, that's a wonderful thing. We're all jealous now. I mean, I can smile while I play, and sometimes but I have to remind myself to smile. Hey, Chapmans, did y'all smile a lot on stage?
No, we don't like each other.
And the answer to that is they don't, because they don't like each other. But in which I totally get that vibe. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Other questions? Anybody got any other questions?
I got a couple more. So you're wearing overalls.
Yes.
Sometimes when I've played, I've had to take my belt off because I don't want to scratch the banjo. The other thing is, what do you do with back pain? So that gets me after a while.
Back pain, it's just, as I've gotten older, I deal with that more and more often. And they make lighter instruments, and some people have gone to using a lighter instrument. Do you wear your banjo on your left shoulder or your right shoulder? Earl, and a lot of banjo players, I can't remember what Alan did, but a lot of banjo players wore it over here. Did you do this, Alan?
I still do.
You still wear it on that shoulder? And I did for years, and I was at a festival, and it was one of those kind of all-night jam deals, and it's like, man, I'm tired. So I moved over here, and it's like, oh, that's comfortable. And so, finding a different standing position, I know the thing I deal with my back as far as playing is I know when we're at about the 45-minute mark in a set because my left leg goes to sleep. And that's from standing and holding the banjo. And I can move it. And sometimes I will move back over to the other shoulder. And that will help with that, especially on a long set. I'll sometimes change shoulders. And that might be something to try. Try a different shoulder. Try a different strap. Might also be helpful. Take maybe a wider strap. I'm vain, so I use a narrow strap. But if you use a wider strap, that might help too. Other questions?
Do you have a recommendation on strings?
String recommendation. Banjo strings. I am a big proponent of using banjo strings on banjos. I use labella strings and have for about a year now, but I like just a standard light gauge set of strings. But that's something that's inexpensive enough that you should just try all of them until you find something you like. Try the medium set, try the light set, there's all kinds of signature sets. There's the J.D. Crow set, there's the Sonny Osborne set. Try them all. See which ones that you like. Strings range anywhere from $5 to $10 a set. You can try strings until you find the ones you like. I remember Bill Keith had a little notebook in his case where he had written down when he had changed strings and what brand he had kept a list. And and that way, and feel free to do that, and that way you know what you've used. I usually have, I usually get strings, by the box, and so I kind of know what I've got on there at the time. But before that, before I had grown-up money and could buy a box of strings, I usually have a pack of strings and I put them on my banjo, and I usually have a spare set, but it might not have been the same brand as the set that I had on my banjo, and so I would just keep the J card out of that pack of strings so I knew what was on there and case I needed to buy a set, or in case I liked them, or in case somebody asks, hey, what kind of strings are you using? Questions?
Humidity, storing your banjo in the dead of winter, that's what.
Fortunately for me, I live in Georgia, so the humidity pretty much stays about 50% all the time in Georgia, which is really nice. Wintertime, I do have let's see, Music Nomad makes one that's pretty good, or it seems like they did. The Dario makes a humidifier. There's a variety of them, and they all do kind of the same thing. I remember one time, I forget where we were, but it was before I really thought about that, and I was traveling with a group, and the instruments would go in the bay of the bus, and I pulled my banjo out, and I solved it by adjusting my truss rod, but if I'd have had a humidity pack in my case, it would have solved that. And somebody said, you know, you could just take a Ziploc bag and a sponge, poke a couple of holes in the Ziploc bag, just a damp sponge, and just throw it in the pocket of your case. And that works too, and I actually wound up doing that, and that worked in a pinch. But yeah, there's a lot of good humidity control things that you can use. Yeah.
I had a quick question, something we've been talking about, Elijah, like, for example, like you learned your version of Unclouded Days, like when you go into the chorus, I don't know if it's the correct terminology or not, you have kind of a chromatic walk down, you know, so watching your videos back and forth, you kind of done it a couple different ways, like you showed it one way, you played it
another.
But the real question is so he's trying to hammer off.
Yeah.
Hammer on all the way down. He has trouble getting it smooth. So in my mind, from a guitar perspective, I'm more of a guitar player, that's debatable, but it's like I used to do a lot of hammer-ons that I didn't actually pick the notes.
Right.
In my mind, I'm kind of thinking maybe he needs to be alternating back and picking.
You can.
To get a smoother and speed.
And you definitely could do that. So it's that lick, right? All right, so yeah, I hammer that, but you can single string it too. You can play it with a single string. So thumb, index, thumb, index. I mean, there's whatever would work for you. And the problem, I think, with doing it the way I do it with the hammer-ons, you really have to be mindful of the timing. You have to understand that each of those is, each of the thumb for each of those, that's a quarter note. 1 and 2 and 3 and. So don't rush them, or you're going to have to pick them all. I like it with a hammer, but it's not. But be mindful of your timing on that. Yeah.
Another thing is I'm having trouble getting the speed in this.
In the left hand,
yeah.
That's a coordination issue. Slow down and make sure the left hand kind of has to happen before the right hand. It needs to be on the thing before the right hand gets there. And so slow down, be mindful of when you're using your left hand. I don't have a super fast left hand like Don Reno or Eddie Adcock, those guys that play a lot of single string stuff. I never had a fast left hand, but it is important to be able to get your fingers there before the right hand is ready for them. Does that make sense? Kind of? No? But, so, like, what is it that's giving you, why do you feel like you're left-handed and fast enough? Yeah, slow that down, slow it down, and tap your foot for each of those beats. That's better. Da. And you can count it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And I would recommend counting it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And make them all even. Make it real smooth. But slow it way down. And be mindful of what you're playing. Don't try to rush through it. I know, it's banjo. You want to go fast. I get it. I get it. I get it. Other questions?
What is that weird device you have on the headstock?
That's a fine question. What is the weird device I have on the headstock? Anybody else got one of these weird devices on there? These are cheetah keys. Do y'all sell them?
We do. We just don't have any right now.
We do. They don't. They do, but they don't have them. Earl Scruggs, y'all have heard Flint Hill Special, right? Where he retunes the banjo while he's playing. So these, they are set to go to a certain note, and I don't have to think about it. When Earl did that, he drilled a hole through his banjo headstock, had a little cam on the second string. And then he thought, you know, it'd be cool to have one on the third string too. And then he had to drill another hole. And then he had to drill another hole because his second string tuning peg was kind of in the wrong spot. And so he kind of made a mess, and that's why you see where he covered it up with the little wax thing made out of a wax buffer. Covered it up, just kind of cover up the mess. But it's a special effect. And you can use them everywhere. And the cheetah keys are convenient to me because if I am out of tune, I can readjust my tuning, and the cheetah keys still work. There is the Bill Keith tuners that replace your second and third string, and then they have little adjustments, and those work. But if you have to retune on stage, then you have to reset them, and I found that to be a little clunky. I have them on a couple of banjos, but these work great. And as a matter of fact, if I was to break a string and put a new string on here, second or third string, they'll still work. And they're adjustable. And you can use them wherever. Them in everything, and it's fun just to grab. They're cam tuners. There's I don't know how many options there are currently for that sort of thing, but the cheetah keys they're real easy to install, and I use them all the time. Yeah, you've got the Keith tuners. Yep. Yeah.
I had those for a little while.
Yeah. And they're handy to now I'm in key of D. And now I'm back in G. So it's a handy, it's a fun gadget. So the cheetah keys. Anything? Who else?
You broke it.
I broke it.
Everybody's done.
Oh, I've answered
all
on.
of the questions.
All right. Another tune. Yeah, let's see. Hey, John, would you like to play guitar on something?
I would love to.
Good. You better love it. You better love it. Oh, so the question is, do I practice with a metronome? I did once upon a time, and then, but the main thing that I practiced with was recordings. I would play along with recordings more than anything else, which was super helpful, especially playing along with like a lot of the old Flat and Scruggs stuff, because those were pretty much recorded live for the most part, and then I could go. And so the very first jam session I went to, I kind of understood this ebb and flow of tempo and all of these things. Just kind of made sense. And now there's an app that you can get. It's called Strum Machine, which is a fantastic app if you've not explored that. And it will play guitar, mandolin, and bass through all the chord changes, and you can play along and set it to whatever tempo that you want it to be. So that's pretty cool. Have you fooled with Strum Machine?
No, met those folks at IBMA.
Yeah, Luke, yeah.
So, somebody's asking, is that a cheat key on the 5th fret?
Is that it?
That is his 5th string tuner.
Yeah, the 5th fret is just my 5th string tuner. Yeah, not a cheated key. That's my 5th string. Is a silver tone a good beginner banjo? Yes. Do as you're.
I have now. Hey.
Hey, are you on?
I'm on. Let me check. I'll tune to you.
Good luck with that. My banjo walked all the way from Georgia. It's a little.
As I'd be into this, I'll tune toward you. I'm close-ish.
Close-ish. Bill Cheatham?
Sure.
Do I know Bill Cheatham? All right, we're holding.
I see you back there. We can switch it out. This is the only one I knew I had. It's so close. I'm ready when you are, I think.
1, 2, 3, 4.
you go. I knew somebody out there would enjoy that.
Got to do the J.
There was at least two people that thought that was great. A lot of people that hated that. Thanks for letting me play with you, Jim.
Oh, I appreciate it.
That's been a whole bunch of fun. Well, everybody who's here, thank you all for coming and being here. Again, I want to thank Recording King and the Music Link in general. Awesome to have you here all week. In fact, we are going to be doing some more. They saw in the comments, anybody who's here tonight only, 15% off all the Recording King, the Lore, all those products. So you can do that on the website. You can do that. There's a coupon. You can see it on there. If you just type in Pankey, you get 15% off. But anybody here, you can also do the same thing. Again, thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. There's still snacks and warm cheese now. Anybody have some warm cheese? They have some sodas and other drinks back there too. You at home, you can get your own warm cheese. Set it out and enjoy some of that. You know, that's always a good time, right?
They can still meet their banjo.
And you can still even cut your own cheese. If you're at home, do not do that while you're here. And thank you all so much for being with us tonight. Thanks, Jim, for an amazing workshop, and he'll be around if you got questions. And if you're watching this stream later on and you have questions, we will try to answer stuff for Jim in Jim's own voice, and we may ask him what he wants to know about it. So
Yeah, I
he'll be
mean,
watching as well.
I mean, y'all recorded me enough talking. You can create the AI model now. It's just like.
Jim, ask him, where is the Acoustic Shop? We are here in Springfield, Missouri. Love to have you guys come down. And again, watch the channel you're watching here, as well as Jim Pankey's channel, the YouTube, the TikTok, the .coms, everywhere he's at, because there's always going to be more and more cool stuff coming. In fact, we have lots of great videos with Jim coming out in the near future, so stick around. And thank you all, everybody. Thank you all for coming with us, and have fun. Bye-bye.
Could you talk about the 6 white horses licked for backup?
Yeah. What about it particularly?
How it moves, where it moves.
Well, I mean, you can play that lick